Hello guys, today we'll be covering a 2019 American horror film called Villains. All the relevant links and information for the film will be in the description down below. Now let's get right into the movie. As the movie begins, we see two lovebirds, Mickey and Jules, on their way to rob a gas station. Wearing animal masks, Jules holds a guy hostage inside the gas station, while Mickey confronts the owner of the gas station to hand over the cash. After successfully robbing the cash register, the two storm out of the store and quickly get away in their car. Mickey and Jules are in their car, overjoyed by their recent stunt and celebrating their last sting before moving to Florida. On the way, Jules suggests stopping so that they can have a little quickie, but Mickey insists that they need to get further away from the gas station. However, while driving through the woods, their car runs out of gas and Mickey starts panicking. To calm him down, they both get out of the car and lay down on the road for a while. Moments later, Jules spots a mailbox, and soon they discover a large, isolated house. In hopes of finding gas inside, the couple decides to break in. They see a vehicle in the garage, but the house appears empty. After failing to open the front door using a pin, Jules resolves to break the door down. Once inside the house, the couple carefully makes their way inside, checking if someone is there. Soon after finding the house empty, they split their paths to search for keys to the garage. Moments later, Mickey finds a camcorder, but he tosses it off, unknowingly turning it on, and we see two people tied to a column. Meanwhile, Jules is seen relaxing on the couch, eating a snack that she just prepared. After failing to find the keys to the garage, the couple hits a line of cocaine each, apparently to enhance their thinking capacity. Finally, Mickey comes up with a plan to siphon the fuel from another car, for which they need a gas can. Then they head down to the basement in hopes of finding a gas can, even though both of them are scared of the dark. They search the basement for a while but fail to find a gas can. Just as Jules suggests going back up, they discover a small girl, dirty and mute, chained to a column. Mickey gets scared of the situation and suggests that they get out of there immediately. However, Jules feels bad for the little girl and is not ready to leave her behind like this. Next, they return upstairs to find a way to release the girl by cutting the chains. However, to their surprise, they meet the surprised homeowners, George, Gloria, and their infant son, Ethan. George and Gloria calmly try to offer money and jewelry if they agree to leave their house without any violence, but Jules is adamant to know why the little girl is chained downstairs. However, George starts laughing and explains that the little girl chained down there is Sweetie Pie. According to George, she's been misbehaving recently, and it's their way of disciplining her. But Jules is not convinced by him and declares that they're taking the child and their car with them. Mickey threatens them with his gun, but George diffuses the tension and convinces them to sit down and talk. Later, George prepares a drink for himself and Mickey. Soon he begins to present his case while Jules insists on taking the girl with them. George reveals that in the past, he used to be an excellent salesman. Every time he used to enter a house for a sales pitch, he would know exactly how to convince his customers to buy. George then accurately deduces that both of them are on the run from the police, judging by the broken down car that he saw on the road. All this time, Mickey keeps his gun cocked while George calmly offers them the chance to simply take their vehicle and leave. He also states that he'd call the police for the broken car without hesitation if they kidnapped their daughter, Sweetie Pie. However, neither of them is ready to go with George's plan. So Mickey rejects their offer and backs up Jules's demand to free the girl. As a result, George is forced to unlock the little girl while being held at gunpoint by Mickey. Once free of her chains, Mickey tries to coax and reason with Sweetie Pie to come forward and go with them. There's a look of hesitation on her face while she looks at George for approval. Suddenly, she bites Mickey's hand, and George knocks him unconscious while Gloria restrains Jules. Next, when Mickey wakes up, he finds himself tied to a bed, calling out for Jules. Meanwhile, we see Jules tied down in the basement along with Sweetie Pie. On the other hand, Mickey finds Gloria dancing in front of him in lingerie. She tries her best to seduce him, but Mickey stays uninterested. Eventually, she gets upset after realizing that Mickey did not get an erection from her dance. Gloria then leaves the room, leaving Mickey tied to the bed. Down in the basement, Jules continues to converse with Sweetie Pie, but gets no response from her whatsoever. She reveals that Sweetie Pie reminds her of her own little sister and starts opening up about her childhood. Jules eventually reveals that her parents left her and her little sister when they were very young. Later, we see Gloria and Mickey going through Gloria's old photo albums. This time, Mickey realizes that he needs to make the best out of the situation and apologizes to her. In an attempt to escape, he starts kissing her so that he can seduce her. Eventually, he convinces her to uncuff him, and as soon as he's free, he pushes her away and escapes. Just as Mickey makes his way to the main gate to escape, George shoots at him from behind. Luckily, Mickey is unharmed, barely evading the gunshot. However, when he hears Gloria crying in the next room, George shoots him again, hitting him in the leg. He then ties him up in the basement with Jules. Meanwhile, outside on the road, we see a police truck towing Mickey's car. While tied in the basement, Jules and Mickey discuss their next business venture that they'll pursue once they're free. Moments later, Mickey realizes that he can use Jules's tongue ring to pick the locks on their handcuffs. Having no options left to take out the ring from Jules's tongue, Mickey rips it straight out of her mouth using his teeth. However, George soon arrives there with food, but both of them reject it. After George is gone, Mickey successfully manages to uncuff Jules using her tongue ring. But when it's Jules's turn to pick the lock off Mickey's cuff, she breaks the ring. Eventually, Jules is forced to go alone for help after Sweetie Pie points to the laundry chute as an escape. After climbing up the chute, Jules watches over the old couple as they dance in the kitchen. Then she proceeds to climb up and comes out in Ethan's room. To her surprise, Jules discovers that Ethan is actually a porcelain doll wrapped in a blanket. Next, George realizes Jules has escaped and beats Mickey for information. He lies and tells George that Jules has already left the house and she's waiting for Mickey to join her at their meeting spot. He further bluffs and lies and says that she'll be going to the police if Mickey does not show up in an hour. As a result, George agrees to let Mickey go. Meanwhile, Jules hides in the cupboard after hearing Gloria's footsteps approaching. Later, George calls Gloria down to bid farewell to Mickey as he's about to leave. However, Jules overhears Mickey and George talking downstairs and misunderstands their conversation. She thinks George is about to kill Mickey. So, in a desperate attempt to save him, Jules comes out holding the porcelain baby doll in her hand. Using Ethan as leverage, she threatens to drop the doll, demanding they let Mickey go. Suddenly, an enraged Gloria shoots at her, causing Jules to drop the doll. As a result, the doll's ceramic head shatters on the floor, breaking Gloria's heart. She cannot believe what's just happened and starts collecting the broken pieces in despair. Next, we see Mickey and Jules duct tape at the dining room table while Gloria cooks a meal. When Jules asked her about Sweetie Pie, George finally starts explaining his side of the story. He explains that Gloria had always wanted a child, but he was unable to give her one. As a result, they kidnapped Sweetie Pie to be their child when she was very young. However, as she grew older, Sweetie Pie only reminded Gloria of the children she could never have. Eventually, Gloria couldn't bear it anymore and wanted Sweetie Pie killed, but George thought locking her in the basement was more merciful, and thus she ended up there. Later, after serving dinner to Mickey and Jules, George reveals that they're not going to kill them. Instead, they're planning to hand them over to the police after 2 days. Finally, the young couple is relieved after knowing that they won't be killed and start eating their dinner. Soon, Gloria tells Jules that when she was a little girl, her mother gave her Ethan as a gift and died shortly after because of cancer. She then blames Jules for taking away Ethan from her. Shortly after, Mickey and Jules begin to feel woozy, having eaten food drugged with what was found in Jules's bag. As it turns out, George lied about handing them over to the police. He tells them that they'll give Mickey and Jules heroin when they pass out. Then they plan on reporting the two as drug addicts who overdosed while robbing them. However, as Mickey and Jules begin to lose consciousness, George and Gloria hear a knock at the door. George goes out to check and finds a police officer outside. The policeman informs George about the robbery that took place at the gas station a couple of days ago, and also adds that the robber's car was spotted nearby. After George tells the officer that he has no information regarding the robbers, the officer gets ready to leave. Just then, the officer notices the broken door lock and is suspicious of George. Eventually, the officer asks to come in and look around, but the dining room shows no sign of Mickey and Jules. As it turns out, they've been hidden in the gym by Gloria. In the gym, Jules slightly regains consciousness, and after spotting her bag across the room, she crawls to it to snort a bump of cocaine. Meanwhile, the officer heads down to the basement, but gets called away before seeing Sweetie Pie. On the other hand, after taking a hit, Jules regains her strength. She then puts cocaine into Mickey's nostrils to give him a boost and wake him as well. When George and Gloria return, they find the room empty and the window open. Thinking that they've escaped, Gloria and George head outside to search the surrounding property. However, it's later shown that Mickey and Jules never left the house and only tricked George and Gloria into thinking they had. They used the opportunity to grab Sweetie Pie and take the homeowner's car keys. On the other hand, George gets furious at Gloria for letting them get away and yells at her. As a result, Gloria gets upset at him and George is forced to apologize to her. Later, Gloria presents her wish to forget all that's happened so far and start a new life with them. When George and Gloria return, they find Sweetie Pie missing along with the car keys. George quickly realizes that Jules and Mickey are still inside the building. Just as the young couple is about to make their escape in George's car, they find George standing in the driveway with his gun. Mickey then warns Jules and Sweetie Pie to duck, and drives forward, running over George and receiving fatal gunshot wounds in the process. Moments later, Mickey succumbs to his wounds, and Jules is left heartbroken. Suddenly, George, injured but alive, pulls Jules out of the car and attempts to strangle her. But Sweetie Pie picks up his gun and fatally shoots George through the head. Finally, we hear Sweetie Pie speaking her first set of words as she tells Jules that she wants to go with her. Later, Gloria comes out to see her blood-soaked husband and collapses next to him in maniacal joy. She keeps on insisting that he's just resting and that they're about to leave to start a new life. In the last scene, Jules and Sweetie Pie set off on foot and hitch a ride to Florida, where they start their new lives there. The end.